I'm a professor of chemistry. I actually have a degree in physics, and my actual, role as a professor is mostly in material science, which is a bit of the two. But what I will say about material science applies to material chemistry as well. So what is fascinating, I would say, it's really the possibility to build, fabricate a material starting from molecules. So, you start from something which is extremely small, and then you have a real thing that you can use for many purposes. In our case, it's generally a biomaterial that interacts with a fluid and with an electronic device. So it's sort of an interface between the electronic world and the bio world, and it really connects them, and this is extremely fascinating. I mean, there are many applications, but the one we pursue is that of using these interfaces for to build devices for biomedical purposes. But there are other applications about this, interfacing between the world of electronics and the world of biology. For instance, there are groups that are working on the interfacing between an electronic system and an organ, let's say our brain, our heart, and many others, trying really to create a connection and even, I would say, a dialogue between these two words that appears to be so different. But there are applications that are extremely important in prosthesis, for instance, a new way of building a pacemaker would give us in the future something that does not look like a rigid thing that is inserted underneath your skin and that goes, into the heart, but it really could be in the future like a electronic, conformable electronic system that is like a sock, that an envelope that really conforms around the heart and helps the heart to function properly. So SIMOT stands for single molecule with a large transistor. It's a technology we patent in 2016, and so it's about, considering that we were working on it before that, it's about 6-8 years that we are working on this, and it's basically an antigenic test that holds the performance level of a molecular test. So basically this device, it's something that you can hold in your hand and that can detect marker, but also a pathogen, so a virus or a bacterium, at the single molecule level. This is something somebody could argue saying that it's already there. There is something already. I mean, there is something already out there that does this. Yes, it is true. But what is out there detects DNA strands, so is a molecular test. What we add to that is that besides detecting molecules, and so DNA strand, we also detect proteins, antigens. And there is nothing, as far as we know, that can do this, which basically means the following. You can test, COVID, for instance, without need to pre-treat your sample, because you don't tackle the genomic content of the virus, but rather the proteins, spike 1, that is on the surface on the capsid of the virus. So it's an antigenic test, as I said. But there is a very large potential development in curing progressive diseases such as tumors. As we all know, tumor cells has a genome that is mutated. So usually nowadays, clinicians, they look for mutated genes that are markers for tumors and cancers. But a cell can produce proteins. And if you have, using the genome to, fabricate those proteins, and if you have a mutated genome, you will produce proteins that are not alike to any other protein which is already in our body, and those are called, addressed as oncoproteins. And so what we do, we really are able to detect at the same time mutated genes and oncoproteins. And this gives adds a lot of information in for the diagnosis, for the early diagnosis of these pathologies. And for instance, we have applied it to the early detection of pancreatic cancer. We know it's a really very, very, it's one of those cancers that is diagnosed when it's usually too late. In our case, we can add not only we can look not only for molecules, for DNA, but also for oncoproteins. And since we are very, very sensitive, we can also make this assay directly into the blood of the patient. So the vision is that at one point in the future, you will have a cohort of asymptomatic patients that can be screened just by analyzing their plasma, and you can have already you can already identify a subset of those patients that are actually already healed. And this means giving the clinician the advantage of the attacker towards the disease. And in the study we did, we were actually able to diagnose, or the clinicians on the basis of our data were able to diagnose pancreatic cancer with diagnostic sensitivity of 100% against 60% of the patients that were identified based on state-of-the-art methods. It's vital, I would say. There is no way to do to go beyond, a given maturity of the technology. Technology, it's the maturity of technology is addressed in a scale from 0 to 10, and 10 is the commercialization. Usually with basic research, which is clearly extremely important. Researchers have to be driven by curiosity, and that is for sure. However, once you get to a point where you think that the technology can be used for practical applications, then the interfacing the dialogue with the world of commercialization. It's extremely important because that becomes an incredibly important driving force towards the right way of commercializing your device. And this is something that, as a scientist, you generally don't know. You have no training to do so. So you need to interface with the right professionals that can actually help you bringing your science and your technology in the real world. And that's the only way to make it useful for the citizens. And eventually that is the final one of the important dissemination, and it's an extremely important point of public research. That's a very good question, and I recall one of my professors. I worked in Great Britain and the United States, in France, in Singapore, in many places. Some of those were longer contract, others were shorter. But anyhow, I could see what research was like in other places. And when I decided to go back from the United States to Bari, one of my former PhD advisor, he was a professor in the UK, he said, you know, it's interesting because when you have to buy a refrigerator for your kitchen, you will definitely choose the best ratio between performance and price. When you have to choose for your life, this highly rational approach, usually it's lost, which is somehow the way it is. I mean, well, I must say that we came back, I'm talking about me and my husband, we were both there working in different groups. We were in the United States at Bell Labs, which was one of the best places in the world in the 90s. And nonetheless, at one point, after 2 years and a kid and whatever, we decided we go back. It was clearly something we did out of the feeling, the good feeling we had of going back to our place, although United States was a dreaming place to be. Nonetheless, I don't regret that choice because eventually Italy, our group, and helped us a lot, not only to have a very, very quick career. We both became full professor by the age of 40. And I cannot say my career here in Italy was not successful. I feel like we both managed to have a very successful career. Clearly, we continued interacting with our international, community, and we worked hard to keep our groups at the international level. And I think eventually that was something good. I feel satisfied about what I did, and it was not easy, definitely not. A lot of work, but yeah, it was worth. When I first became involved into the issues of women in science or women in apical position, I thought that this was a non-problem. I felt like I was never discriminated. Why should we care about all this? Then I saw statistics, and I saw how bad the situation was, and that were numbers, and that was a really, you know, was something that was not connected to anyone's feeling, was really something that was there. And so I felt like, I thought, well, maybe I don't feel affected because I never thought about this. But there is an issue, and we need to tackle it, and we need to find ways to overcome this issue. And this is the reason why I'm very happy usually to talk about this, because I think that the first, the zero level, it's really, let's get people aware of how bad situation is and how much is needed, you know, to really tackle it. And gender issue is one of the way of making this clearer, you know, because there is a clear distinction between men and women in a world where, you know, we usually have this kind of separation between people. Then there is a wall word in between, but still, you know. So my point, the point is the following: best practice to train our mind to look beyond appearances can really be built on gender issues. And so this is the mother of all the battles, all the struggle, of all the, it's the English for battle maybe, and so we need to pursue on that road until we really feel that people is educated to think beyond our prejudices. Not sure about this. What I definitely see is that female scientists attract female students. That is for sure. So the role modeling really applies, and which is the major thing. I have a group which is mostly populated by women, and I'm pretty clear to myself when I have to choose somebody that has to bring added value to the group. I really want competences. I really want people able to be to work in a team. I want people that is dedicated to work and things like that. So that is really my priority. Nonetheless, probably I attract so many women that eventually I can get very good team members, knowledgeable, able to build a team, to help me building our team and whatever, but still with the majority of women. Yeah, and this is probably connected to my history. As I said, as a fairly young researcher, I went to the United States, where I had this major opportunity, which really was a turning point in my career, and I must say also in our personal life, the life of my family. And when I was there, we are talking about 94, 96, there was already a very deep awareness and a great attention to gender issues and not to discriminate people. Then maybe discrimination was there for other reasons, but there were a lot of good practices already in place for people not to feel discriminated. And so I felt like people was really, considering what I was doing rather than what else I was appearing. I mean, I was a foreigner. I had an English which was clearly not as good as mother tongue people speaking people. And then when I came back to Italy, I had strong connection with the European Commission. I worked a lot for the European Commission. All my scientific activity was in Bari, but I had a lot of interaction with the European Commission for many activities. And also there, I felt that there were good practices in place that somehow let me feeling not discriminating. I had no feeling of discrimination, and this is the reason why, when at one point I was in my 40s, maybe 45, and I started getting contact with this community of women that were very much into studying how much women were discriminated, and not only in size, and as I said, in apical position. And my first feelings were, well, maybe they are a bit exaggerating here. But then I probably then I wanted to deepen my knowledge. Then I really came across statistics. And at that point I said, no matter how I felt, there is an issue that has to be fought. And that was, and since then, I'm really doing this whenever I can. Yeah, very good question, I would say. Let's put it this way. Nowadays, and this is something I clearly could touch firsthand while I was campaigning for position in the lower chamber in the Italian parliament, and people feel like a politician needs to be somebody that knows about laws, economics. If you are a scientist, you would not make it a good politician, which I think is a major mistake. It's a bit connected to the fact that if you don't know Dante and Boccaccio, you are clearly somebody with a low level of education. If you don't know how to solve an integral, you don't like math. That's not too bad eventually overall. But now we are living in a society that it's really where technologies and science is affecting more and more our everyday life. And so being able to conceive a law, being a scientist or having a technical background, in my view, would be extremely important in giving citizens a new perspective in a world that will be not dominated, but really deeply affected by technologies. Science, in my view, shall stay as much neutral as possible, because we should act as a corridor, as a highway, as a route to peace, that with possibly by keeping very rational and very, at the same time also, we shall be deeply involved in building science. And there is, a community of scientists that are already doing this. Clearly, it's not as strong as it should be, but I think whenever I was in the position of taking a decision in supporting the role of science being neutral I mean, supporting scientists from Russia and from Ukraine, because, you know, at one point we had to discuss this if I'm not mistaken, in European Commission, you know, discussing if we shall continue supporting both countries, and the idea was, yeah, because, you know, the Russian people are not Putin, and the Israeli people are not Netanyahu, and the people in the Gaza Strip are not Hamas. So, you know, I think we shall keep as much as we can, you know, this idea that science should be the place where people debate. They can also argue. They can argue with a strong, starting from very strong position, but we have in our mind, there is this dream that eventually it is for good. It is for pursuing truth. As a scientist, I would say no. Because the limit, I mean, we have to pursue knowledge beyond whatever. So our goal is really to understand Mother Nature, whatever it takes. And, you know, being driven by our curiosity is really what is behind, you know, a scientific community. Then, if there is a clear, you know, proof that our technology can really impact on the life of people, then, yeah, I would say there should be some panels where ethical issues are associated with scientific research should be discussed in a very open and knowledgeable and possibly influenced by politics, because it's inevitable, but driven really by the rational approach of professionals that can really, you know, foresee in advance what the impact could be.